Ladies and gentlemen, on this YouTube channel, I have a playlist. That playlist is called How to Lose at Chess. And in that playlist, I cover low elo chess, generally games that have been sent to me by viewers, by subscribers. I analyze them. They're disastrous, but very funny, and we all laugh at the pain of playing chess together. Today, I have something very different. This game was not sent to me. This game was played at a chess tournament. The two people who played this game don't know I'm making a video about this game. That is because both of these players are top 20 grandmasters in the world. Pragnananda and Aravind Chidambaram. Both superstar grandmasters from India who played a game that was so crazy and so fun and so exciting and so back and forth that it actually qualifies itself for this playlist, because games in this playlist are all over the place. White is winning, black is winning, white is winning, black is winning. There's a draw, there's a stalemate, black is winning, white is winning, and then the game is over. Please enjoy this game. Also, very quickly, I'm currently in Madrid, in Spain. Beautiful city, having a great time, even with the power outage yesterday. Just want to quickly shout out something kind of funny. I had a long dinner tonight, had a few drinks, at the restaurant called Eval. It's a Cuban restaurant in Madrid, and I ate here last year as well in 2024. So I've now gone to this restaurant 2 years in a row. It's a fantastic restaurant. If you're in Madrid, you should go. If you're visiting Madrid, you should give it a try. Delicious food, and the owner was so gracious. He gave me this hoodie because I asked him, does he have any hoodies to buy? He said no. He gave me his hoodie. So just a small shout out for a local restaurant here, having a wonderful time. And now I will show you a wonderful game of chess. And seriously, go to Eval one time. Please do me a favor. Okay, so first things first. This is a rapid game. These two gentlemen start this game with 25 minutes on the clock. Rapid chess is, they're currently playing in a tournament called the Super Bet. They play rapid and blitz, and that leads to very chaotic and very exciting chess. So the game opens with c4. Prague plays the English opening. Black has many responses now. Most, frequently people are trying to play like a Queen's Gambit decline setup with e6 and d5. Sometimes they're taking the center with e5. We have e6, knight c3, d5, and now Prague plays the move d4. So it's basically like we've played Queen's Gambit, Black declined the gambit, and now Prague is playing the move knight c3. Aravind here plays bishop e7. We have an exchange. Queen's Gambit declined. White plays the move bishop f4. Very normal stuff. Now Prague is going to make some decision. Is he going to put his knight on f3, or is he going to put the knight on e2? He's not going to eat his own pawn. He's going to play e3, knight e2, and then develop the rest of his pieces. These are the typical setups for White in this opening. Black plays c6. This move supports the center. It prevents anything from going to the b5 square, creating any problems. And obviously Black is also going to try to figure out how to develop his pieces. Another thing in the exchange, Queen's Gambit declined. White has queenside play that he generates like this. This is called a minority attack with the 3 pawns versus these 4. And that's all very good. So e3, bishop f5, weakening b7. White can play the move queen b3. It's not a particularly useful move. And this move is obviously just trying to develop the knight to the d7 square without blocking in this bishop, right? Black can also play h6. That prevents White from getting anything on the g5 square. And also the bishop can come over here. These are all typical ideas, okay? So knight e2. We have knight f6, all normal. Knight g3 targeting the bishop. The bishop goes back to e6. The bishop could have gone there to begin with, but you sort of argue that White spending 2 moves moving the knight to g3 is not particularly good. We have bishop d3, we have castling, and White plays the move knight f5. So Prague is immediately trying to justify his obscure little knight maneuver here. He's trying to put the knight on f5. One move that Aravind could have played here is the move g6. That prevents anything from going to the f5 square, but it is a little bit of a waste of time. And if g6, you might actually get hit with this move, after which Black would be unable to castle. So there are pros and cons of every decision that you make in this position. So Prague is like, okay, I need to justify the way that I'm playing the position. I'm playing knight f5. My goal is to get the bishop. And if he takes me, my goal is to get the light squared bishop. Tough decision to figure out, which bishop is better to give away. But here's a little rule of thumb, a little high-level wisdom here. You try to give away the bishop on which you have already improved the pawn structure. So you know which structure you are stronger on based on the amount of pawns you have on that color. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Black is very good on the light squares. Black only has 2 pawns on dark squares, right? And then if those 2 pawns also went on light squares, Black would have a horrendous time defending the dark squares. So this is the problem bishop, and that's why bishop takes f5 here is played, and after bishop takes f5, rook e8 is played, and he'll probably put the knight on, d7. Maybe he'll develop the queen. Maybe he'll play something like h6. He's just going to finish up his development. He's going to be in completely reasonable shape. Position is still equal, but with many good chances for both sides. Queen b3. Provocative move, targeting the pawn on b7. Generally, the move here for black is queen b6. You meet the queen head on, and if white trades, then, black is going to open up like this and have a very nice position, which is why Arvind played this move, relatively quickly. And Pragg went back to c2. And basically, he argued, I baited your queen out, and I actually got my queen to a more useful square, and now your queen is out here doing nothing. It's not attacking anything, whereas my queen could be useful, right? I could actually start generating an attack. I could, of course, just also castle. So knight bd7. Now, if I ask you, what is the most natural move here for white? Think for a few minutes, even, 2 seconds, and you say, well, the best move is obviously to castle, right? Yes. Which is why Pragg plays h4. This is high-level chess. And by the way, these guys are rated 2684 and 2550 because these are their rapid ratings. They don't play a lot of rapid compared to classical. Arvind is top 20 in the world now, maybe even higher. He's a very, very strong player, a new addition to the Indian super squad of Gukesh, Eric Gaisi, Pragg. They got Vidit up there, and now they have Arvind, who might even be higher rated. They obviously also have Anand, but he doesn't play that many tournaments anymore. Another interesting move here to me would have been g4, g5, which is basically attacking the knight, and the knight is guarding that knight. So it's very difficult for black to, figure out what to do. h4 is provocative as anything. I mean, right? Like you are indicating to your opponent that castling is not really on your agenda. You might castle this way. You might also not castle at all. You might play king f1 and figure it out. So Arvind goes, but again, the game is just getting started. He plays rook a d8, and Pragg plays long castle. These two moves are just simply a declaration of hostility. And what's fun about this game is that these guys are not even like that deeply on a rival level. These are actually close friends. Like there are photos of one of them holding the other in his arms. I think it was Arvind holding Pragg in his arms because they have an age gap between them. So obviously, Arvind was a bit older. So this is like one of those games. You ever play against one of your friends one-on-one in basketball? Like some of you don't even leave the house. So I would recommend, you start with that. Touch some grass, and then, one-on-one basketball or one-on-one, like, in Call of Duty or Overwatch or Valorant or, Fortnite or whatever, the youngins are playing nowadays. I used to play Combat Arms, okay, on Nexon and MapleStory. Like, those were my gaming days. But, you one-on-one your friend, you go hard because, like, your friend, right? Like, you want to beat your friend because it's a competitive rivalry. So this is kind of the element of that. But we are just getting started with the fun. c5. Arvind plays a move because his opponent castled his king here. He wants to open up the position. He wants to trade, take with the knight, activate the pieces, etc., etc. Pragg can take. He can do a lot of things. He plays the best move, though. He ignores this. This pawn is controlling a very important mobilizing square for the enemy knight, and then black just can't really get any pieces into the game. Pragg's position's fantastic. His attack is arriving much faster. Black can play the move g6 attacking the bishop. You don't even have to acknowledge it, honestly. You might even get away with h5, g5. Of course you can take and play h5 and whatever. Arvind takes on d4, and Pragg takes like this. That's even better, by the way, than taking with the pawn. To me, taking with the pawn is supernatural. It's the move I would play instantly because you stop the knight from coming forward. Rook d4 is even better because rather than worrying about the knight coming forward, you just put pressure on a weakness. The rook is coming to d4. The rook could also swing over there when the pawn moves. Pragg is just playing a fantastic game. Like, we are just heading for a video that wouldn't have been particularly interesting. It would have just been Pragg playing a fantastic game of chess. Bishop goes to b4. Here comes our first moment. Arvind loses the game on the spot. He plays bishop to b4, attacking the knight, targeting the knight. But the game is over. If Pragg just goes here, it's actually kind of crazy. Knight a4 attacks the queen. If you play knight a4, the only move that keeps the queen protected is the bishop protected is queen a5. And now bishop c7 just wins. It's just a fork. Black has to go b6. You take the rook, rook d8. I have a few ways that win. I can take the knight. This is just totally winning for white. So Prague is winning on the spot. Very straightforward, knight a4. Maybe he calculated sacking the queen in something like rook c8, but he can just go back. So that doesn't really make any sense. Knight a4 just wins. Very short, very straightforward video. Prague doesn't play it. He straight up doesn't play it. Bishop b4 appears on the board. Knight a4 is a natural move because it's, your knight is targeted. By the way, you guys would play knight a4 here. Because, oh, he attacked my knight. I got to go attack his queen. 700 ELO logic, right? Prague goes here. He tunnel visions the attack on the king side. He's just trying to, he's trying to win the game, obviously. But the problem with this move is that Arvin doesn't have to move the knight. He can take the knight. So now he got rid of that problem completely. Now, Prague here can't take with the queen because then his queen and king would be aligned and he would have all sorts of problems on the c file. So he takes with the pawn. Now his king has a nice layer of protection. It's nice pawn on c3, right? Queen on c2, king on c1. And the black knight is still targeted here. And if the black knight were to move, bishop takes h7 comes in, you lose a pawn with check, etc. So knight e4. f3. Prague is doing everything right. Knight is hanging. It has to move, right? And then you take on h7 check and you completely bludgeon the black king. Arvin's not going to go down without a fight, though. The defenses of the white position are actually a little bit of an illusion. It's not so simple as it seems. It looks very easy, but it's a facade. Knight takes c3. Now you realize you cannot take the knight. It was not actually protected because, rook c8. Okay. But rook c8 is only enabled by the rooks being here together, which is why in this position, Prague plays bishop takes d7. This is a fantastic move because now if you play the lazy rook takes bishop, now I take the knight, you don't have a way to win my queen because my bishop protects this. So this is a high-level game while being sprinkled, on top with craziness. Knight e2 check is amazing. This is a fork. And when you take, Arvin comes in with queen takes d4. And now he's threatening all sorts of stuff. The bishop is hanging. And if you take the queen, he comes here. So we have this and we have this. Prague is better. He brings the bishop back. He's better. He has two bishops for a rook. Two bishops are better than a rook. How is black going to win this position? He's going to take pawns, right? Going to take as many pawns as he can. He has two extra pawns. And then he's going to try to queen some pawns. White's endgame here is likely going to be aided greatly by the existence of the rook. If the rooks are traded and black is able to win another pawn, two bishops and three pawns on this side of the board are just not going to cut it against the rook and two pawns. They just can't defend that well. White needs the rook for defense. Yes, there is a world in which white can trade the rooks, but that will make things significantly harder. Case in point, Prague goes here, check, here, takes, and rook e8. And let one of the craziest games that I have seen in recent memory begin. Now, admittedly, one of the reasons why this game is crazy and qualifies for this playlist is because both guys have about a minute on the clock. Every time they make a move, they gain, I think, 10 seconds. But, they're still much better than you, even if you had 30 minutes on the clock. But this game was unbelievable. This was a heavyweight Titanic fight. And let this game remind you that even at the top 10, top 20 level, anything is possible. Anything is possible. King d2. Arvin plays f6. Apparently, immediately a mistake. But obviously, the only way that white wins this endgame is preserving one of their pawns. If all the pawns for white get traded, they can't make another queen. Two bishops don't beat a rook. White needs at least one pawn to survive. Pawn takes f6, pawn takes f6. Prague now has 3 pawns remaining. Black has 5, and a rook, and 30 seconds on the clock. Prague plays bishop f5. Arvin plays a5. His pawn is now 4 squares away from queening, and I can't really say that Prague's bishops are doing much of anything. Bishop c7. Again, it's really tough to decide what to do here. He decides to try to protect, block off the pawns and push this pawn too far forward. Arvin plays a4. Arvin's pawn is now 3 squares away from queening, and as it just so happens, Prague accidentally pushed his opponent's pawn to a more beneficial square. And actually, Arvin now is probably going to win the game. And this is what I was saying. It's going to be very difficult for Prague to play this endgame with no rook. Bishop d6. Arvind plays b5. Obviously, the two pawns must protect each other. And if bishop d7 is played, you have all sorts of rook d8 stuff, but, bishop d7 doesn't actually threaten to win the pawn. Bishop a3. Arvind plays king f7. The reason you cannot easily take the pawn on h7 is you will lose your, one of 3 remaining pawns. I'm not sure you can do that. Prague agrees. Here comes rook g8. Now we have problems. Rook g3, rook g4, obviously not now, but just in general. Infiltration, getting to the bishop, pushing the pawns. You can take on b5. Then I'm going to come here. But obviously that's what Prague should do. He should take all the pawns on the queen side. That's what he does. Rook g2 check, king c3, rook f2. Prague is now going to lose his remaining pawn. King e6, f5. Arvind is still threatening to promote pawns. The bishops have migrated to the left side of the board. Arvind is still threatening to promote, and he's going to threaten to win the h-pawn. Game's over. Right? Bishop c1 is a mistake. Pawn to f4. I mean, Prague has 12 seconds. There's no way he can successfully defend against this. The rooks does a very nice job shielding the bishops out. It's just not going to work. Bishop back to c2. Rook f1 kicks the bishop. The pawn's now 2 squares away from queening. If Arvind ends in an endgame with king and rook versus king and bishop, and they each have a pawn, of course the king is going to win with the rook. It's self-explanatory. If you have to give up one of the bishops for the pawn's 2 squares away from queening. Rook f2 is coming. Rook h1, f2, f1. Like, how are you going to... There's no way. There's no way. Prague plays bishop takes... No. The only move here was bishop takes h7. And in some miracle way, you can save the game. But Prague is now losing. And he's losing because of rook h1. And like I said at the very beginning of this endgame, this is going to be an impossible endgame to play with the 2 bishops. You just can't stop all these pawns. Black is winning. It's going to take the pawn on h5. You can't stop this. If you play bishop h3, I simply take the pawn on h5. I have this protected. That's what happens. Rook h5. Beautiful technique from Arvind. Just incredible. Very, very high level. King to d3. And that's it. His king is going to come help too. And then the rook is going to go behind the pawn. And then the pawn is going to promote. Bishop a4. Now you go king g4. King g3. King g2. Rook is protecting the pawn. Easy, right? Simple. King g4. Bishop f2. And now is where the How to Lose a Chess playlist kicks in. Of course, the most natural move here is king h3. You just put the king on the g2 square. You try to remove the bishop. The king has to protect the bishop. And then you try to do this. Bishop to e8. Rook goes to h6. Rook is coming here. Rook is coming over there. King is going to g2. Bishop f7. Perfect. Perfect. Now, the only thing we can't do is give this check. The king is protecting the bishop. In this position, rook a6 and rook a3 wins. It's simply game over after that. Now, it's not exactly perfect. Sometimes you may want to come here. Sometimes you may want to go back. Arvind puts the rook on the wrong square. Because now when you take this pawn, you cannot give this check. He forgets. Arvind says, I want to make it into a Gotham video, but for all the wrong reasons. He just moved his rook to a square where he doesn't have the check. He doesn't have this check. He doesn't have this check. And now the game is going to end in a draw because he just lost the center pawn, and now black has to play defense. Now the game is ending in a draw because you have to defend this pawn, and white is going to advance, but it's just going to be a draw. Bishop to e4. Arvind brings the rook back to f8, and he still has a pawn, by the way. Prague plays d5, h5, bishop to h4, and now you have to remove this bishop, right, because it's blocking your pawn. So you play king h3. You're going to put the king on the g4 square, where it's going to protect this pawn, defend this pawn, and you're going to advance. It's very easy. Bishop is going to come attack your rook. You're going to move the rook somewhere. Bishop back to e1. King g2. They're repeating moves, but no draw. And now black here plays rook d8. And the reason why this is a blunder is because he needed to put the rook on f6. And after d7, the rook stops the pawn. But instead of that, he went here. And the pawn can now be taken with a check. And I told you at the beginning of this endgame, all white needs to survive this endgame is one pawn. And now he has it. You cannot take, because bishop c7 x-rays the rook to the king. And two bishops win the game. Rook e8 check. He goes here, and black resigns because he cannot stop promotion. And since he cannot stop promotion, he's going to lose the game to the two bishops. Mating with two bishops is easy at this level. This was a crazy game. It started out with Prague just being totally winning from the opening in this position with knight to a4, knight a4 winning on the spot. But then it went back and forth. He kept attacking. Arvin found an incredible resource to force an endgame. And then Prague gave up the rook, and Arvin just played fantastic. He was just on fire, like this maneuver to win the pawn and bring the king and bring the pawn and bring the rook and then a moment of madness. It's a 50-50 of where you put the rook. You just have to be able to give the check, and he chooses the wrong square. We never see top 10, top 15 players trying to, do impressions of us. But sometimes it happens. Sometimes it happens. What can you do? And ultimately, it is Prague who gets the job done. Now, here's a little bit of good news. First of all, these guys are obviously friends. It's you feel a little bit better when you lose to a friend, let's say. But they're still in second and third place in this tournament. They both have a lot of points, and I will make a recap of this one a little bit more deeply, probably when it's over. But Fedosseev is having a great event, and these guys are both having great events. But sometimes 2,700 rated players submit themselves to the How to Lose a Chess playlist. I got nothing but love and admiration for both of these guys, but I got to cover it when these things happen. That's all I have for you today. Seriously, check out this restaurant if you're in Madrid. It's not a paid promo. I'm just really had a great dinner there tonight. And I'll see you all for continued coverage of the things in the chess world while I'm on this trip. And for the start of the European tour in a few days. Get a ticket. There's still some left. Brussels almost sold out, and Munich is almost sold out. So if you want to go see the show in Munich with guests Nicholas Huschenbeth and the Svane brothers, or Brussels with guests Anna Kremling, Julian Song, and my wife, it's going to be a great show. Get a ticket. Get out of here.